boys and girls, and welcome to Unit 11, Geometry and Measurement. We are still continuing to learn about shapes. Today's lesson, you will identify and describe three-dimensional shapes. The past three lessons, we've done two-dimensional shapes. Now we're going to identify, classify, and describe three-dimensional shapes. What skills will we need for this lesson? Well, we'll definitely need to look for models of mathematics. There will be perseverance needed in problem solving, but not the kind of problem solving you're thinking of. The problem solving we'll be doing here is classifying shapes and describing them and determining what makes them different from other shapes. So we will definitely have to think about what makes sense, and it's extremely helpful if you talk about and explain your thinking. You'll also have to make use of structure and look for patterns or connections. So let's get started. You might want to pause the video and attempt to draw some of these pictures because we are going to label them in groups. There are three-dimensional shapes, which are 3D. You've seen that before. And there are two-dimensional shapes, which are known as 2D. Two-dimensional shapes are flat. So let's look for the two-dimensional shapes on the screen. This is a two-dimensional shape. This is a two-dimensional shape, and this is a two-dimensional shape. We have a circle, a rectangle, and a triangle. All of these shapes are two-dimensional. So these are our 2D shapes. They're 2D because they are flat, and they're not solid. The shapes that we see for the rest of this page are considered 3D shapes because they are solid. So I want you to visualize what some of these look like. We've been studying planets in science, so let's take a look at this sphere. This is almost like Earth, okay? Or it could be the kickball that everyone uses for Foursquare. This would be kind of like a canned good that's full of food, or it could be a candle that has a little wick in the middle. So I want you to think of all of these other shapes as solids, okay? All of these other shapes are solid. Now there's a group here that goes by itself, and these are called non-polyhedrons. And the reason they're non-polyhedrons is because all of the shapes over on the other side are called polyhedrons. And here's why. A polyhedron is a three-dimensional shape. For example, we have prisms, and then we have pyramids, okay? And they have figures with faces, all right? So all of the shapes on this side that have a highlight are considered polyhedrons. And it's because they are 3D shapes and their sides have faces. And all of their sides have faces. That's what differentiates them from the non-polyhedron. The sphere does not have a face. The cylinder does have a face, but you see the side of the cylinder here? The side of the cylinder is curved. That's why it's not a polyhedron. The cone has one face at the bottom, but if you notice the side of a cone, like an ice cream cone, is curved. That's why it is not a polyhedron. So these three shapes are considered non-polyhedrons. On the left, we have all of our polyhedrons, and it's because they all have faces on their sides. And I'm just shading a few of the faces. See, here's a rectangle. Here we have a hexagon. Here we have a rectangle. On this face, there's a triangle, but this face has a rectangle. And each part of these prisms or pyramids have a name. So the bottom of all of these is called the base, okay? The top is called a base, but the sides are called laterals, okay? And I'll label it here. The side of these shapes are laterals. And you may be asking, well, how do you tell the difference between a lateral and a side? Or a base, I should say. Well, you can tell the difference because of the way that they stand. So, for example, on the rectangular prism, most of the sides are rectangles. All the sides are rectangles, but the base could be a square or a rectangle. On a hexagonal prism, the base is a hexagon, so that'll help you tell the difference. On a pentagonal prism, the base is a pentagon, but all of the laterals are rectangles. The lateral here is a rectangle. The lateral here happens to be a cube, which means that all of the sides are, or all of the faces are squares. Does that make sense? And then on a pyramid, we have only one base, and the base could be a rectangle, a hexagon, or a triangle. And you could also have a square, but since a square is a rectangle, that's why you don't really hear us say a square pyramid. And I'm going to try to draw a square pyramid for you here. Okay, that's my little drawing of a square pyramid, the best I can. You might want to pause the video, boys and girls, and take notes, because it's important for you to understand that prisms and pyramids are polyhedrons, and it's because they have bases and faces, and their lateral sides and their bases are different shapes. These shapes are not polyhedrons because their sides are curved, even if they have a base. Okay? So let's try to figure out what these next shapes are in the I do, we do. I'm thinking of a shape with two congruent bases. Let's go back. The bases are the exact same. Well, the base is the same on this one, and this one, and this one, and this one, and this one. Oh, it must be a prism. Because only prisms have two congruent bases. Let's go back. Pyramids only have one base. Did you notice that? Pyramids only have one base. Let's answer the second one. I'm thinking of a shape with two congruent bases. The bases have 6 sides. Oh, now let's go back and see. I know which one that is. I know it's a prism because it said two congruent bases, but 6 sides, that means it's a hexagon, so it is a hexagonal prism. And then it tells us to label the following shapes. I know exactly what that can of soup is. That's a cylinder. I recognize that. I love tomato soup. Grandpa Bob does too. Now this shape, it only has one base, so it must be some sort of pyramid. And it's important that I spell that right. What kind of pyramid is it? Well, the base looks like it might be a, if you're thinking what I'm thinking, you're right. It's a rectangle. So let's label it a rectangular pyramid. Some of you are probably going to say, wow, this is really easy, Miss Addison, and you're right. Go ahead, try these on your own, and I'll come back with the answers. Now is a good time to pause the video so that the answers don't pop up and surprise you. Take a moment, check your answers, write down any questions that you have, and we'll see you next time. Take a moment and reflect on your learning, see where you are on your scale, write down any questions that you may have, and we will see you in the next video.